Lorenzo Fertitta and Dennis Bermudez, thank you so much for joining me. It's really great to see both of you. Welcome to Capitol Tonight for the first time.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Capitol
Yes.
Tonight. So a lot has changed since the last time that we saw you. New York is now the last state where MMA is not legal, and also the main, or the person believed to be the main impediment to getting this passed is gone. So are you feeling more optimistic than you were when you were last here?
I would say so. We're definitely more optimistic. We know that, certainly it's not done. There's a long ways to go. We passed through the Senate now 5 years in a row. We are very confident that we've had the votes in the Assembly for the past 5 years by a landslide. But you hit it on the head. The bill was never allowed to go to the floor because the previous speaker just wouldn't put it on the agenda. We're hopeful that this time around, with a new speaker, who, by the way, in the past has been a co-sponsor of the bill, understands the issue, understands the sport, we're hopeful that we'll at least get that opportunity to have the bill voted upon in the Assembly.
So he's taken his name off everything. So he was a sponsor of this bill and many others, but he's decided now he wants to start with a clean slate. I know you've spoken to him. He has also spoken publicly about MMA and basically said, I haven't talked to the conference about it. He's careful, I think informed by the experience of his predecessor, that he doesn't want to get too far out ahead of the conference. And there were other people who were opposed to MMA, but you're working on them, is my understanding.
Yeah, we are. It's the same process we've been going through since 2007, trying to educate the different legislators, trying to answer their questions. And of course, there are going to be some people that this just isn't their cup of tea, or they don't necessarily agree with it, and that's fine too. But we do feel like that we have the overwhelming majority and the support of the majority of the Assembly and the Senate. And once again, we would just like for the democratic process to be able to play out and, move forward.
Dennis, you're actually from New York. You're from Saugerties.
Yes.
And are you training here?
I live in Long Island now.
Oh, you do? So
Yes.
you are training in New York,
Yes.
but you're not fighting in New York.
Unfortunately.
So what are you saying to lawmakers, or what would you be saying to lawmakers about why this is an important change to make?
Just MMA is such a great sport. I mean, it's changed my life dramatically. I've just learned a lot about my body and dieting and a lot of things like that. And I think that's knowledge that just a lot more people should be aware of. And I think if MMA gets legalized in New York, more people will be opt to join and train.
Is it a problem for you, or that you can't, your friends can't come and see you fight, or your family can't come and see you fight?
It's definitely an inconvenience, A lot of times we have to go to New Jersey to fight and stuff like that, and to, gather everybody and ship them over to New Jersey or Pennsylvania to watch me fight. It kind of stinks.
So you don't have your cheering section as much as you might like.
Right.
One of the things that we talked about in the past, or one of the arguments that you've made, is that you'll bring economic development to the state and not just to New York City, which is where everybody assumes, oh, you want to be in the Garden, obviously. But you would bring it to upstate cities as well. Have those numbers changed at all?
No, we've done updated studies. You're talking about economic impact in the mid 100 plus million, 135, 140 million range. We think that's a conservative number based on our experience in places like Las Vegas and other major metropolises in the United States. But the key is that we can go to Buffalo and we will attract a significant amount of that crazy fan base we have in Canada to come across the borders and fill the hotel rooms and fill the restaurants. We did an event in Toronto. We had 53,000 people at the Rogers Center. We have a base, and when you look at the growth, and a lot of things have changed. When you look at the growth and popularity of the UFC, as far as in the sports culture in America, we're now mainstream coverage on ESPN. We're one of the pillars on Fox Sports 1, their cable channel. We're outrating the NBA on ESPN. We're outrating the NBA on TNT, outrating NHL, outrating Major League Baseball. So this isn't an underground phenomenon. This is part of mainstream American sports. And once again, it's just continuing to educate people, try to get through the process, and at the end of the day, hopefully the state legislature will let the New York State Athletic Commission do their job, which is to regulate sport. There were 54 amateur fights in the state of New York in 2014.
Unregulated.
Which means they were unregulated.
Right.
They didn't have the correct testing, medical personnel on staff. They weren't doing blood tests to check the athletes, and they weren't paying taxes. and the fighters weren't getting compensated. So this whole system that's in place in New York is backwards.
Could you also address this issue regarding the union? I mean, we've talked
Sure.
about this before. It's HTC, it's Hotel Trades, but they have a very strong base in Las Vegas. The issue is that they want you to unionize your operations in Vegas, and they are strong here. I mean, we're now the most unionized state in the nation, New York. Even if you would say that labor is weak or weakening elsewhere, you know, it's always been a problem here, and it seems to be a stalemate. I don't know how you plan on breaking that, or if there's been any movement.
Well, you know what? I think that more recently the pushback has not necessarily come from the New York chapters, because at the end of the day, we're going to create that economic stimulus. We're going to fill the hotels. It's going to benefit their union members. Same thing with the stagehands and so forth. The pressure is being applied from Local 226, the Las Vegas Culinary Union, where me and my brother own and operate 17 casinos that are all non-union, not by choice of us, but by choice of our team members, not feeling that they needed to be represented by a third party. Since they have not been successful at organizing our employees through a traditional method of a secret ballot measure or something of that nature, they think they have a point of leverage for us here in New York, because they've essentially held us up since 2007. And you know, they want to use that to try to benefit their cause in Las Vegas. It's crazy, but that is truly what has been happening.
Same.
And they're on the record. It's not something I'm making up. I mean, they send letters,
but it's
they're
still
lobbying.
the same. You're still at the same two sides
Yeah.
at this point. No middle ground. Dennis, I do want to ask you this. You know, we and Lorenzo's been in and had this conversation with me as well. But as a participant, I think you bring a different view to it. You know, particularly some of the women members, but not all women, in the legislature have said, well, this sport is too violent, or this sport is anti-woman. Some of the tattoos that some of the participants have on their body are anti-women or violent or whatever, you know, or racist or sexist or whatever it is that people feel about this. What is your response to that?
In terms of anti-women, it's one of the UFC's top stars is Ronda Rousey.
Oh, she's been here. Yes, I've seen her.
And she's amazing. You know, she's in movies and like I've been in the UFC longer than she is, and she's just way surpassed me. You know. So in terms of it being anti-women, that's just ludicrous.
You know, a lot of times people, you know, they'll throw that out there, you're anti-women, and you say, well, how? And they have no answers, because they don't want to have a real debate on the issue, because there is no evidence of that. The reality is, Dennis said, we just did an event, 18,000 people that sold out Staples Center in LA on Saturday night. Ronda Rousey and Catherine Zagano were the main event, and then the co-main event were two women as well. This organization has done more for females and women in athletics than any other professional organization ever in history, and what we're doing to push that movement forward.
Well, they tend to bring up, if not anti-woman, in other isolated incidents where you have fights where people get very hurt, or fights where people say things that are inappropriate, and hold that up as an example and say, see, this sport is not appropriate in some way.
Well, once again, this may not be everybody's cup of tea, but you know, to be the moral arbiter of what people should be able to either watch on TV or go to an event as they buy their own ticket and make their own decision. At the end of the day, you know, are there athletes that maybe say things that aren't appropriate? Yes, that happens. We have 585 athletes, but same thing goes for the NFL, same thing goes for NBA, Major League Baseball. We're dealing with human beings, but to try to make that connection with a sport or an organization is just, quite frankly, it's just unfair and unfounded. And you have these special interest groups that are just trying to throw whatever they can against the wall to try to paint us all with the same brush, and it's just really not fair. People like Ronda Rousey and Kat Zagano and Misha Tate take offense to that, as do the hundreds of thousands of women who train in karate, judo, jiu-jitsu, and martial arts and mixed martial arts every single day around this country and in the state of New York. I mean, it's kind of a slap in the face of them for somebody to be making that correlation that for some reason martial arts is bad for women. It's not. It's empowering to women. Why shouldn't they be able to do the same thing men do and have the same platform to be successful? And how now they wrote a letter opposing the UFC and mixed martial arts. They're just, I don't see the logic, the connection, and I think honestly it's offensive to women.
Well, we're going to keep track of this one as we have for several years now. I'm sure that you will be back.
Yep.
Maybe next time you're back we will be in a more celebratory mood. But I thank you very much, both of you, for being here this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.